Bandits abduct passengers in fresh attacks along Funtua-Gusau Highway. DSS calls on organized labor to shelve planned nationwide protests on public interest. Senate rejects planned increase in electricity tariff. On the foreign scene, widow of assassinated Haitian president indicted by authorities over possible involvement. Hello again and welcome to the Trust TV News Update at this hour. I'm Aisha Salihu. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin with the security update where armed bandits on Tuesday abducted scores of passengers in two separate operations along the Funtua-Gusau Highway. The passengers onboarded two commercial vehicles, Homer Hayas and Sharon, were headed to Gusau from the Funtua axis when the unfortunate incident occurred. According to report, the second operation occurred at Gidan Kaji in Magazu village, Safe local government area of Zamfara state. Report says residents could not ascertain the number of passengers abducted at Gidan Kaji, but a Golf wagon car was found abandoned at the scene, which suggested that all the passengers on board were kidnapped. An Ondo State High Court sitting in Akure, the state capital, has sentenced 6 persons to death over their involvement in bank robberies which took place in Akure and Idonre in 2011. The convicts include a pastor Adewale Adelu, Ikechukwu Maduagu, Fayemi Olubusuyi, Ropo Adeleye, Dele Otokpa, and Bayo Omotosho. They were found guilty of robbing two commercial banks in Akure and Idonre on November 19 and December 8, 2011 in Akure and Idonre respectively. The suspects were arrested by men of the State Police Command and were charged to court. The court delivered the judgment on Tuesday. When the trial began, the convicts were arraigned before the court on a 4-count charge, bordering on conspiracy, armed robbery, and illegal possession of firearms, and were later remanded in Olokuta Correctional Center. Delivering judgment on Tuesday, Justice Yemi Fasami held that the prosecution proved its case beyond reasonable doubt, adding that the defendants were unanimous in their confessions and the role each of them played in the robberies. To this end, Justice Fasami sentenced all the defendants to death by hanging in each of the counts. And on to labor matters. The Department of State Services has urged the organized labor to shelve its planned protests against the prevailing economic situation in the country. Labor leaders on Monday began mobilizing members for a nationwide protest slated for February 27 and 28 over the cost of living crisis in the country. The protest, according to the labor leaders, followed the federal government's failure to fulfill its promises after the 14-day ultimatum. Reacting to the planned protests in a statement on Wednesday, the DSS, in a statement by its spokesman, Peter Afunanya, urged the union to shelve the plan in the interest of peace and public order. The Secret Service urged the union to pursue dialogue and negotiations rather than engage in conduct that could heighten tensions. More on labor matters. The Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners have called off their strike after federal government's intervention. Now, to confirm this, in Abuja on Tuesday evening, after the intervention of the federal government through the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Heineken Lokbobiri, as well as the President, Narto Yusuf Usman, said the stakeholders in the downstream oil sector had reached an agreement to increase the freight rate of petroleum transporters and to gradually settle other concerns raised by the tanker operators. NATO members have repeatedly raised concern over the high cost of diesel required to power their trucks for the transportation of petroleum products across the country. Earlier, we were joined by Mr. Usman Yusuf, the national president of NATO, and he had this to say.
Actually, we don't call it strike. We just withdrew our services for a day or two with a view to bring out some issues to the marketers and probably to whoever could come to our rescue. As you are aware, we're in the full subsidy regime, meaning that government has no business in the transportation of petroleum product. It is entirely in the hands of marketers. And by that virtue, meaning that it is the marketers that will ultimately have to pay us for whatever we transport. So the problem we have now, there are increases in our operational costs, and those increases have negatively impacted into our business. So we are currently operating at a loss because the operational cost is getting higher by the day, the cost of tire, cost of diesel, cost of battery, and all other components, cost of the vehicle itself. So that was why we, in any case, since September, we've been engaging the marketer and even some arms of government with a view to come in and ensure that this has gone on. We are quite conscious of the fact that today fuel is distributed 100% by trucks. So if fuel is distributed 100% by trucks, it means it's 100% distributed by our members. So the issue is that we are not adequately being paid by virtue of the operational cost. Now, with the withdrawal of services, the attention of government agencies was called on. Of course, even the Minister of State Gas had to call us, and he had our view. Similarly, called the marketers, he had his view, even NSA. So in view of the prevailing situation that we found ourselves in the country, it was apparent for all of us to look within. First, we suspended our services, and after suspending our services, the marketers also were told to look at within their operations what they can do to improve the operation. So there, everybody is aware, every marketer is aware of our costs, and they are aware of what they pay us. So if we are making money, they know. If we are not making money, they know. It's not something that is sitting in black and white. But we thank God, we thank the government, the intervention of the National Security Advisor, as well as the intervention of the Minister of State Gas.
Now, Mr. Usman, in line with your response so far, I'd like to know, what does this mean for the petrol market in the country? I mean, people remain apprehensive about a spike in the price. Is it likely going to happen?
Well, it's not likely to happen as far as I'm concerned, because fuel is available everywhere in the country. It's just that if you have money to buy it, you buy it. If you don't have money to buy it, then that's it. But I'm sure fuel is available. That's one. Two, also there is disparity in the market because NNPC retail sells lower than other marketers by virtue of their strengths and the coverage they have in the country. So if you see people queuing up NNPC retail, queue up is because of the difference in cost, not necessarily because of the scarcity.
Now, earlier you talked about government's intervention. Now, I'd like to know, how confident are you about the commitment of this same government that you talked about earlier in addressing the demands of industry players like your association, so we don't have to have repeated cases of strikes and now that you're even withdrawing services?
Well, we are quite sure. The truth of the matter is that, this is purely a commercial activity. Government has no business in the payment of freight anymore. Government came in with a view to arbitrate and to avoid elongation of the withdrawal of service, which ultimately will affect the consumers and will create unnecessary scarcity. So that was why government coming in just like arbitration to, of course, inform the marketers the need to look at the cost and make some improvement, and also to talk to us with a view to reduce, maybe to reduce our demand. And we meet at a point. And I believe government, if there are so many things that we don't know before now, in view of security situation of the country, even the marketers we don't know, now we know. Again, there are some outstanding payments belonging to marketers before the full regulation, which has been held over the years. So government has called the department responsible for these payments, And the department has promised, in fact, they have told us they are going to make immediate payment to marketers who will eventually pay the transporters. And there are some marketers who are owing those agencies the promise to make payment so that the payment will eventually come to the marketers and they will pay us.
The Senate has resolved to probe a failed agreement that would have seen local manufacturers produce prepaid meters for distribution across the nation. Also, to be investigated is a 2 trillion naira subsidy which the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, says would be required to avoid the repeat of the fuel subsidy scenario still bedeviling the nation's economy. The resolutions, which were reached at Wednesday's plenary, were part of a motion of public importance by Senator Aminu Ilya Abbas. Following these resolutions, the Committee on Power was mandated to equally investigate the 1.3 trillion naira owed by the ministry to generating companies and $1.3 billion owed to gas companies. The lawmakers agreed that the federal government stands down the idea of increasing electricity tariff by withdrawing subsidy and engaged the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to come up with a lasting solution to the energy billing system in the country. The legislators resolved to also investigate the operations of DSS to ascertain the current status of metering and their extent of compliance with relevant legal and regulatory frameworks in service delivery, as well as the release of funds by the federal government for mass prepaid metering. The chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Science Engineering, Inuwa Garba, has called on the federal government to investigate the privatization and concession of 22 out of its 33 silos across the country. The federal lawmaker, who had brought the motion before the House of Plenary, titled "The Need to Investigate the Privatization and Concession of Federal Government Silos in Nigeria," thereafter briefed members of the House of Representatives' press call on the importance of bill following the food crisis situation in the country. Garba urged the federal government to, as a matter of priority, consider subsidizing agriculture to revitalize the economy and improve food security in the country, stressing that Nigeria, with its population size, needs to have silos in all the states for food security. The federal government had in September 2017 commenced the process of concession 22 out of its 33 silo complexes across the country to the private sector to ensure availability of affordable grains across the country. But today, none is functioning to meet the demand of citizens at this crucial time of hunger in the land.
When you keep the when you buy the produce, you produce other things for the consumption of in Nigeria. So it's not. I don't think it is a problem for government to take it as a priority because of time like this. By looking at your face, you are not happy. I don't need to ask anybody, you are not happy. And I know what is itching you. Yes, we're all Nigerians. Is any one of you here very happy? No. From president to down, nobody is happy. Why? We don't prioritize our plans and programs in government.
And on to matters of politics. The All Progressives Congress has declared its governorship primary election in Edo State inconclusive. The National Publicity Secretary of the party, Felix Moka, disclosed this in a statement issued on Tuesday night to announce the party's position on the contentious primary held last Saturday. The ruling party said a new primary will be held on Thursday to determine its flag bearer for the September 2024 governorship election in the state. The party convened an emergency National Working Committee meeting on Tuesday night to resolve the lingering crisis arising from the primary conducted by the Senator Hope Uzodinma-led committee. Drama had trailed the APC governorship primary in Edo State last Saturday as two other candidates laid claims to the ticket of the party after the chairman of the primary election committee, Uzodimma, declared Dennis Idahosa winner of the primary. Embattled former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, has demanded 1 billion naira damages from Senate President Godswill Akpabio for defamation. Emefiele's lawyer, Matthew Broka, in a notice to the Senate President dated February 19, 2024, faulted the "we don't know what to charge Emefiele with" statement credited to Akpabio on February 18, 2024. Emefiele, through his lawyer, said Akpabio's comment is false, distorted, and clearly aimed at disparaging the character of Emefiele as it was made in bad faith. The Senate President, at a Thanksgiving service by Senator Barinada Nkwegi in Koroma area of Tai local government area of Rivers State on Sunday, had said Emefiele left the Nigerian economy in a mess, adding that the federal government does not know the charges to levy against the ex-Apex Bank chief. Broka said, contrary to Akpabio's claim, the federal government had since August 14, 2023, preferred charges against Emefiele, adding that his client had pleaded not guilty to the said allegations. He therefore demanded an unreserved apology in writing, published and circulated by the same medium with which the Senate President allegedly defamed his character, and a sum of 1 billion naira as reasonable compensation for the willful and unjustifiable denigration of Emefiele's reputation. You're watching the news update on Trust TV. Still ahead. Imo residents react to call for national pledge at official public functions. We'll bring you details of this story and more after the break. Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. But if you're just joining us, this is the Trust TV News Update. Now let's take a look at a recap of some of our top stories. You heard that bandits abduct passengers in fresh attacks along Funtua-Gusau Highway. Plus, DSS calls on organized labor to shelve planned nationwide protests on public interest. Moving on to more stories. Borno State Governor Babagana Zulum has cautioned religious leaders to adhere to the teachings of the Holy Book, which frowns at violent extremism and terrorism. Governor Zulum stated this during the presentation of a unified curriculum for Islamic schools by the Sangaya Education Board at the Government House in Maiduguri. The curriculum aims to counter violent extremist ideologies among youth in Borno, while emphasizing the need to promote teachings and preachings based on the content of the holy books. Governor Zulum assured that his administration will ensure that all Islamic schools adhere to the new unified curriculum. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Arabic and Sangaya Education Board, Khalifa Sheikh Ali, who said the document centered on the Maliki school of thoughts, called on stakeholders to support the new curriculum and promote quality Islamic education in Borno State.
In line with the board's mandate, this curriculum was developed based on the Imam Malik Madhab to harmonize the teaching and learning in all Islamic schools. The curriculum contains subjects such as Arabic, Quran, Fiqh, Hadith, Sirah, and Tawhid. Today, as we celebrate the presentation of the Borno State Unified Curriculum, we also reflect on the journey that has led us to this moment.
We are very much aware of what has been happening in Borno State. The so-called Boko Haram insurgency was started as a result of improper preaching. Furthermore, we are also witnessing another development in Borno State in recent days. Preaching by some scholars within the state is also a matter of great concern to all of us. And therefore, the government of Borno State will do everything possible to ensure that teaching and preaching by scholars is in compliance with the contents of our holy book.
Residents of Owerri, the Imo State capital, have called on President Tinubu to channel more energies into resolving issues of insecurity and the economy, which they said will have greater impact on the lives of Nigerians. The call comes on the heels of the recent charge by President Tinubu that the national pledge be compulsorily recited at official public functions to help re-engineer the spirit of patriotism among Nigerians. Trustee Ajibade Praise tells us more.
Noble as the presidential directive on the national pledge is, many see it as a misplaced priority in the face of daunting economic and security challenges. For some of the residents, the nation has not been fair to them, as nothing seems to be on ground to motivate them into reciting the national pledge or driving them towards a more patriotic orientation.
It's sung everywhere, wherever there's an event, even the church. Any big event where you have a presence of a government official, the national anthem and national pledges are always sung. But we just for singing sake, we don't do what the national pledge is, the wordings of that national pledge, or even national anthem says. If we do that, the country will be better. So the president, I think I want to advise the Mr. President that from today he should be doing living by the pledge.
For others, the present-day hardship in the economy deserves more attention than reciting a national pledge that will do little or nothing to assuage the sufferings of the masses.
The national pledge, what they're talking about now is to be faithful, honest, to abide and blah, 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 the rest of them in the national pledge. I don't think that the judiciary and the rest of them, they are abiding on that. You understand? There are so many things in Nigeria which are not among the national pledge. They should look into the national pledge and abide to that system because the citizens are suffering. You understand? The national pledge encourage everybody, even the poor masses, but now everybody is suffering.
They believe that the only way the government can get the citizens to love and recite the national pledge is not by compulsion, but rather by implementing people-oriented policies that will usher in good governance.
I think the priority should be that the president should make incentives. People need to be happy. I think in Nigeria, I think people are not happy now. If people are actually happy, they will find it on their own. They will recite the national pledge.
The country is not treating us fine. We are experiencing severe hardship. Not everybody will want to sing the national anthem and the national pledge because some are of the opinion that the country is not offering anything good to them.
Though it may not sound very appealing to Nigerians at the moment, but patriotism on the part of citizens is key when it comes to nation building, and the recitation of the national pledge and upholding its tenets as directed by President Bola Tinubu is one of the major ways to achieve such. Ajibade Praise, Trust TV News, Owerri.
Away from Nigeria, a judge in Haiti responsible for investigating the July 2021 assassination of President Jovenel Moïse has indicted his widow, Martine Moïse, ex-Prime Minister Claude Joseph, and the former chief of Haiti's National Police, Leon Charles, among others, according to a report obtained Monday, February 19. The judge stated in his report that Martine Moïse suggested she took refuge under the marital bed to protect herself from the attackers. But he noted that authorities at the scene found that not even a giant rat whose size measures between 35 and 45 centimeters could fit under the bed. The judge said the former First Lady's statements were so tainted with contradictions that they leave something to be desired and discredit her. Dozens of suspects were indicted in the 122-page report. Ex-Prime Minister Claude Joseph and the former chief of Haiti's National Police, Leon Charles, who is Haiti's 7th representative to the Organization of the American States, are among those indicted. And with that, we've come to the end of the news update at this hour. But remember, you can always follow us across all of our social media platforms and also join our YouTube live stream for more news, programs, and documentary. I am Aisha Salihu. Thank you so much for your time.